guys, today I wanted to do a review on a product called Hip Helpers. Since I'm putting this video on the My Torticollis Baby YouTube channel, you might be wondering whether or not this product is used to treat torticollis. And the answer is no, not directly. I used Hip Helpers for my daughter because she had a habit of splitting her legs while trying to learn to crawl, which made learning to crawl a little bit more difficult for her. My daughter's physical therapist had mentioned that once Kellen learned to crawl that her torticollis would likely improve. Therefore, I wanted to do everything I could to help her achieve this milestone. So first I'll give you a little bit of information about the product. Hip Helpers are shorts designed for babies and toddlers who have excessive hip abduction with low muscle tone. So babies with excessive hip abduction may have trouble crawling because when they're on all fours, their thighs may split and they end up on their tummies. And that's the case with my daughter. My daughter found army crawling on her tummy to be much easier than actually crawling on hands and knees. So Hip Helpers are a great tool for children like my daughter because they prevent the child from splitting their thighs and engaging in excessive hip abduction. Hip Helpers are made with nylon and lycra fabric, and the leg holes are separated by stitching, which runs from here to here. You can order 5 pre-made sizes in various colors, or if you'd like, for an additional fee, you can order a custom size. Within about a week of using the Hip Helpers, I did notice that Kellen was crawling much more regularly on hands and knees. I can't say how much of that was contributed directly to the Hip Helpers versus how much of that would have happened naturally on its own. But I will say that the Hip Helpers seemed to be a helpful cue to help her keep her hips in line so that she could learn to crawl properly. Another nice thing about the Hip Helpers is that it's pretty affordable. For $19, I ordered the product directly from the website, and that included shipping. Pretty shortly after I ordered the product, it arrived in the mail, so that was also nice. Now I will say when my daughter's wearing the Hip Helpers that sometimes they fall below her knee, which seems to limit her movement some. I think the Hip Helpers work best when they're kept above the knee. Kellen may have just been too short in stature for the size we purchased, which was a C. The B was too tight on her, the D was a little too big for her, so the C seemed like her best bet. Doing it over again, perhaps buying the custom size through Hip Helpers may have been her best bet, but I just didn't feel like springing the extra money for it at the time. Another point to mention is that my daughter didn't always crawl properly when wearing the Hip Helpers. The Hip Helpers did help limit her ability to split her legs out from underneath her, but what she would sometimes do would just drag her body around with her arms like this, like sort of in an army crawl, but let her legs kind of drag behind her without doing any of the work. So the Hip Helpers encourage her to crawl properly some of the time, but some of the time she just got lazy and would just drag the bottom half of her body around with her arms, doing that little army crawl thing. Overall, I think Hip Helpers are worthwhile to try if your child experiences excessive hip abduction and low muscle tone. In my experience, I don't think the Hip Helpers completely fix the problem for my daughter. However, I do think they really encourage her to keep proper hip alignment during crawling. Before ordering, I encourage you to take your child's measurements as described on the Hip Helpers website in order to ensure that you have the proper fit for your child and you order the proper size. You can order directly from the Hip Helpers website, and that's www.hiphelpers.com. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope it was helpful to you.